Hello, welcome back to Search with Sean. This is, of course, another Chat with Sean episode. And yeah, I've got a great guest and a friend of the show back. So, I mean, they need no real kind of intro, to be honest, because they're everywhere at the moment doing some great stuff. But I will do the intro anyway, because that is tradition. And then we'll get some awesome topics. But yeah, obviously, I am joined by Myriam Jessier. They are independent SEO and AI search strategists based in Denmark. They help Fortune 500 brands, government agencies, and global SaaS companies to adapt their search strategy as AI reshapes how people find information. And Myriam speaks at marketing conferences like Brighton SEO, SMX, and OMR. Many others, I'm sure, as well. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining me again. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Hello, I'm very, very happy to be here because you're one of the folks in the industry that connects the dots in very unusual but very, very important ways. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I think I probably think really abstract on a lot of stuff. But when you follow like the stuff I do outside of SEO in terms of science and stuff, it kind of makes you think differently. So I think that's why I think we connect a lot on that as well. So let's get into some topics. So what is God mode marketing?
So I've been talking about this recently because I'm very privileged to partner up with just user-centrics. So they are the folks doing the cookie bot, cookie banners, and a lot more privacy-centric offerings. And one of the things that I think is very important to talk about today is we have been enjoying what I call God mode marketing for quite a bit. And right now, we are abruptly cut off, but not entirely. So let me get back on the premise. It starts before the internet. So there's a very famous John C. Wanamaker quote. If you study marketing, you will come across that quote. He basically said, hey, I know that 50% of my marketing budget is wasted. I just don't know which 50%. And when the internet happened, Sean, what happens? We have cookies. So then marketers are getting confident going, we solved the John C. Wanamaker problem. We know which 50% is wasted. The problem with this is A, it's been a very comforting lie. And B, we're in a situation where before we had cookies and internet marketing, choice architecture was rather simple. So for people who don't know what choice architecture is, it's a rather fancy expression for saying, hey, how do we as marketers and salespeople show the choices that you have as a customer? So we used to have a choice: buy, don't buy. And then with the advent of cookies, we ended up with companies like Google and Facebook creating an ecosystem where we have a behavioral modification machine. So we go from this choice architecture that is binary, yes or no, to doesn't matter what you want. We will move you along the funnel and you will convert. Doesn't matter where you enter. The end game is you converting. And this is suffering a bit of backlash because if you tell me right now that I get to bypass all the pop-ups, all the annoying ads, and I can just ask an LLM to give me the answer, I'll take that because your website experience is not great. I know I'm the product and I don't enjoy it. So then we have agents coming in, right? And agents, they do this funny thing where they have one get request and they compress basically checking multiple pages into one request. So you don't get the usual visibility you would in your dashboard because your dashboard has been built for human behavior, for scrolling, for browsing, for clicking things, for not clicking things, but still looking at stuff, for leaving. None of that behavioral residue remains behind with agents. So this means that our fancy dashboard is not really worth it. And I don't know if you've seen this, Sean, but more than 50% of the traffic on the web is estimated to be by bots. So Is it really God mode? Has it ever really been God mode, or has this been a very comforting illusion? Now we have OpenAI starting with ads, and I'm thinking y'all had 3 solid years plus to come up with a business model, and you're coming with a crappier version of Google Ads, and we don't get much data, and you're here, wait, it's the future. Something weird is going on because when I say godlike marketing, we had access to so much data that we felt like we were the Mad Men 2.0, right? But now, what are we left with? We are left with a fork in the road where all of us are in the dark trying to piece it together. And then there's these companies that are amassing a lot of data with us. We have Instagram that is choosing to not necessarily go the encrypted route. We have a lot of privacy being eroded and sold as this is good for you. Let's feed all that data to LLM companies. And as marketers, we're in the middle, right? We helped bring about this situation. But I don't know about you. I remember being promised with ChatGPT that, oh, it's a better solution than regular search because you don't have that many ads and it does this and it does that. But the internet is a weird environment. It's almost like the sea in the sense that if you're a crustacean in the sea, there's a very specific process called carcinization. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly, where the logical evolution for any crustacean ends up always being a crab because it's the best form to survive, okay? So, what I'm noticing with the internet here is that with the Web 3.0 coming around, it's starting to look like a crab. We're going back to advertising. We're going back to, okay, so what finances the internet is selling things to people. But we're still not getting the right data. It is not good. It is not helping us. And here we are trying to fix it by tagging things better, which we can't. We're trying to fix it by telling each other that, yes, there's been this great decoupling, but we'll be fine. And we need to. We're not fine. We are either going to be drenched in data where we as marketer will have a really big ethical choice to make because we'll get too much information about people to the point that we can do some real damage, or we'll get nothing and we'll have to get creative again. And this means that we'll have to decide, do I create a website that is made for agents where I know I don't get a lot of data, but I'm going to at least measure the sales? Or do I create an experience that people want to go to on the web because it's that good for a human, that fun? And I don't know what the in between looks like. So when I say we're at a fork in the road when it comes to this, we are. And either we're going to go turbo God mode and have so much data that is going to be creepy, or nothing at all. How do you see it?
Yeah, it really fascinates me. I'm watching, literally before we jumped on here, I was watching a video about this, about is AI the new mind control device? And it was talking about the evolution of advertising where obviously social came into play. They found out they could target people based on their behaviors and they were trying to make websites sticky and all this stuff. And then they found that they could, when they put people in buckets and say they were like 80% there, they were comfortable, they could probably buy a product if they pushed it to them. How do they make them 90%, 95%? So they started pushing stories that related to the stuff they were like having their fears about, and having issues with. So they kind of like trying to influence them to push up to that next bracket. So, but obviously, and now things are changing and AI's come into play. I like you. I think it could go one way or the other. I do think there's an awakening in the sense that I do think people are aware now how much data is being collected about them, and I think people are becoming very uncomfortable with that.
You know why? Because there's multiple processes here, and I'm going to try to go very fast when it comes to this. First of all, there's a cognitive bias. There's a reaction, a behavioral reaction in us that is called reactance. The more you push me to do something, the less I want to do it. And this is growing more and more with people because you don't like to be marketed at. You want to be spoken to. And there's this argument that we could personalize things and make it way better. But we know human nature. How many of us can truly pull it off when it comes to really good marketing with the constraints we have, right? So, with the internet being what it is, more than half of the traffic is bots. Humans are leaving these areas and going into group chats. How many group chats do you have on your apps?
Yeah,
Right?
no, it's true. I mean, I was about to say, like, social media, when it first started, had a slightly better goal than it has now. It was actually to try and, I mean, Facebook was pretty much like a dating app sort of thing at the beginning because it was our college students trying to hook up or whatever.
So, Sean,
But it
I'm
had some
old.
social element to it. But now it's just an advertising channel, really. Let's be honest, like all those Facebook and stuff.
So I'm going to go down the conspiracy theory route. Hang with me. I have a few spicy ones. I am old. I am Facebook old, which means that I got Facebook when it was only open to a few select universities in Massachusetts, okay? Like very beginning, because I was in the school next door to where it was invented, okay? And yeah, I can guarantee you something, Sean. There was one brave lady that was visiting every single male on her floor. And then she moved on a few floors up, a few floors down. So some people made this their mission when it comes to Facebook. And that was the original reason people got on there. But do you know who invested in Facebook early on? Donors. So when we're talking about control, remember how Facebook was able to guess who you were tied to and propose some friends to you, even though you had never discussed them necessarily? I would argue that what we're seeing now is just the final form of a platform that was always shaped to be this way. And when we say social media started with better intent, this is where I come in. So I know that a few folks know that I work with Julia Panozzo, amazing neuroscientist. I have the sociology angle. She's got the psychology angle. My diploma is in sociology. I have another one in communications. But when it comes to the social angle, studies were done very, very early on with Facebook. And the type of social link that Facebook fostered was already wrong. Let me explain. When you have close friends, you go in WhatsApp, you go in Signal, you talk to them, you can send them a voice message, a little video, text, I don't care. But you have this relationship. And it takes roughly 200 hours spent with someone to build that rapport. Okay? But with Facebook, your relationships never die because that person that you said hi to in high school for a semester, you have her on Facebook. You're still tied. You maintain this weird parasocial relationship, like this weak tie, this weak social tie that was never meant to remain, but now you maintain it. You're kind of stuck in the past. You collect these kind of not dead, not dying, but you collect these branches, these nodes in your friendship graph that are not meaningful. They just take up space, and that's it. And this to me is something that we have ignored for quite a while because we're voyeuristic. We like to watch, we like to maintain. I mean, I don't think about the people I went to high school with, but even I did that thing like 10, 15 years ago of going, you're finally fat. Finally happened. Good, because you were mean to me for being fat. And then I moved on. That's not healthy. It's not. And there's some people that just keep doing it over and over again. So if you have this weird, almost social experience, you know it's exhausting you. You know it's not doing well. And humans are reacting negatively to the web as it is now and retreating in human-only spaces. And when I say human only, I'm just going to give an example. I recently joined a community that a friend of mine has been badgering me to join for quite a while. They are so good. They are so good because LLMs know who they are. They will sell the product. If you ask, hey, should I join? Is it worth it? Blah, blah, blah. But everything is happening behind closed doors to the point that their WhatsApp, they have an entire empire of WhatsApp group chats. Like they have special communities. They're shutting them down because too many people are getting invited in without being vetted. They take the community very, very seriously. And they apply all the sociological best practices that I learned more than 20 years ago. I see them in these online communities. They are thriving and they're not open to Google. They're not open to ChatGPT. None of that knowledge is being transferred or offered elsewhere, but they're thriving. So they must be doing something right. And we see more and more of them happening. So then, how do you get that data? How do you market to these people that don't want to be marketed to on your terms? They want to be marketed to on their terms with people that they trust. That's what I mean by exiting God mode. How do you go back to actually building a solid brand, not just optimizing for performance?
Yeah, and I agree. I think some people, like organizations, they lose touch with their users because they're so focused, like you say, on the grind of this like performance marketing and all that. I think that is definitely a case. So where does this all go? Because I think perhaps, I mean, I don't know, but I would presume that the likes of Sam Altman and that probably didn't predict that people would catch on to like people talking about AI
Predict?
psychosis, and it's trying to like keep you on the platform. So people are catching on to like their games already, like their I don't know what you want to call it, their tricks, but they're already catching on to it without them even going full tilt on adverts yet. So where do the AI models go, and where do you think humans? How do you think they're going to adapt to it?
What I find very, very interesting now is we have multiple angles to handle as marketers. Number one, remember the fancy funnel we spoke about? It's getting compressed to a few queries in ChatGPT and you don't get that visibility. It's also not something that you can rely on because it keeps fluctuating a lot. All you get is trends. You don't get exact data because human behavior by nature is fuzzy already. So we lie to ourselves saying that we have 100% of the data. But on top of that, there seems to be a dual internet, a two-speed internet. The internet that is fully, not necessarily agentic, but it is facilitated by agents because I remember I said I'm old. Like, I'm not just Facebook old, I'm 56K modem old. Okay. So I used to go on the internet. I had to want to go. I had to go visit websites and nobody knew where they were. There was no Google back then. So now we're seeing this resurgence of web rings. I don't know if you know what those are. Do you remember those? But web rings used to be this weird thing where people would link to each other, websites that they liked, to recommend websites to others. Doesn't that sound like something Google built off of? Maybe, backlinks? Yes, it does. So this pre-existed Google. Google brought order to it. That's what was monetizable. But they're coming back, Sean. People love making pixel art on little blogs that they maintain themselves and that they handcrafted and that they are going to share with others. And they explicitly opt out of search. They don't want to be found. It's an if you know, you know. So you have that internet that is going back to being an experience. You have to want to be there. You have to invest the time. I would make a parallel to music. I remember that when the internet came around, people were very upset because they spent years developing and curating their musical taste and recognizing each other based on the music they liked with obscure bands and references. And all of a sudden, now you could have like a 12-year-old become a huge fan of the Misfits in like 10 minutes because they had access to everything. Yeah. So all this time when I was entering the internet, when I heard, older folks going, those are posers, I'm like, you're just mad because we actually have access. I love the internet. This is so cool. But now I look at it and I recognize the sociological value of putting in the time. So we're going back to this internet as like a walled garden, reacting to these little islands of human behavior. And then there's the other speed, which is, I hate the experience you're giving me. Can I send an agent to negotiate my insurance policy and make sure I don't get screwed over? My God, let me avoid your website. Here, take my money, take my data, take my knowledge, plan it for me. So we have these two speeds. And when you said, like Sam Altman and others, like the Anthropic people are catching on, Sean, they never cared. They never cared about us. They never calculated this. They followed the same pattern that Google followed, which is we're going to make as much headway as we can, skirting the legality. And as soon as there's a whiff of legal action, we backtrack really hard, but we already keep the gains we made. Except these platforms are living on rented infrastructure. They don't have their own index like Google. They didn't put in the time to really dominate. So what I'm going to find very interesting right now is either they make it by the skin of their teeth, the seat of their pants, and they pull it off, or this is going to blow. And if it blows up, which I've been saying for a few years, is it going to disappear? No. Whatever remains behind will be what we use. And I'm not a magical oracle. I've just survived, the Y2K bubble. I remember those days. I remember when Napster was a huge thing. Piracy is also becoming popular again because people are reacting to subscription models that they don't like anymore. They want to own the thing they pay for. So that's why I think the internet is dividing into two different bubbles. People who want to go and have experiences with other humans, with new things, and then people who want to avoid the overwhelm that we have been subjected to in the past decade and a half.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that, to be honest. Look, the thing is with humans and with like most animals and things, living things on the earth, they work in cycles, and we see human life, it works many times in cycles. And I think we see all fashion and music and everything, and I think more and more people are understanding, like, they don't have much in life, but what they do have, they want to own it, and they want to, like you said, kind of, they want to keep it and take care of it and grow it or whatever. And we used to have that with MySpace. MySpace was like your page, and you used to spend so much time dedicated to making it the best page possible. And
MySpace didn't. MySpace used to be a place where you didn't have. I remember, once again, like I said, I'm Facebook old. I'm 56K modem old. I'm also MySpace old, and you didn't have to say who you were on the internet. This thing was introduced by Facebook. They forced you to validate your identity. Most of us were used to being anonymous on the internet. We used to make jokes like, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Growing up as a 9-year-old, I was a big black man called Mark for quite a few months. It was really fun. Don't trust 9-year-olds, by the way, with the internet. You should not. But you know what I mean? There's this notion of freedom of, like, when LinkedIn is asking me to verify myself, I'm like, absolutely not. I don't trust you with what you're going to do with this. And I know I'm one of the stubborn ones, and you end up always giving in. You always end up doing a little more, a little this, a little that. When social logins came in, I did not want those because I knew what they were going to siphon off of me. And this is why I'm telling you, I think people are not necessarily waking up. I just think that the value of the internet for them is not there. When you have all this concentration of value within a few players, why would I write content to feed you when you don't even tell me what you give me in return? Why would I feed the beast? Which leads me to maybe another topic that we need to discuss, you and I. I've been talking about copywriting quite a lot lately. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. Yeah, if you got any like your top tips on copywriting for large language models and that. Yeah, I know you've been discussing it.
Because the problem that we have, the fundamental problem, okay? And this will come with the tips. Don't worry, I can be very actionable. I know you and I are rather theoretical when we talk, but I'm a very tangible type of person. So your problem is that you assume that everyone is going to read your page from top to bottom and that they are going to follow a linear path and enjoy everything that you did or didn't do, but still take it if it's slop. And the problem is that we know people don't do that, but we know bots do that. And we also know how to capture a bot's attention and a human's attention different ways. But with LLMs, we're dealing with little bots that are coming and reading in windows, snippets. So the entire experience that you're crafting on that page does not matter. So you have to write with a different mindset. You have to write as if you were talking to someone who's ADHD and also had half a bottle of vodka while we're at it. The reason why I say this is not only are they weirdly focused, but not on the stuff you care about, but they also will be doing weird stuff with it. And you're like, but why? So if you're a copywriter, how do you survive? At the very least, you have to have one sentence per page that can be lifted out of context and still make sense. And this is something most of us don't get right. So if I go on your website's homepage, I should have who you are, what you do, who you do it for, where you do it. One sentence. Do not dilute all of this. Do not waste my time. Do not assume, because whether it be a bot or a human, our attention spans are not what you expect. So this means that you have to present yourself in a way that makes sense out of context. And this is new for copywriters because we're used to building tension. We're used to playing on emotions. We're used to resonating with humans. And all of a sudden, this isn't played the same way. And I would argue that this gives us more freedom because with SEO, we had to control everything. We had to put all the keywords in all the hotspots, etc. There is no real reason to do this anymore. Get the right content, yes, in the right spots, in ways that can just simply be lifted. And you're already doing most of the work. I didn't say all of the work, but you're giving this page a reason to be. You're connecting all the dots for the machine, and you're connecting all the dots for the distracted human. I see you want to say something.
No, it's just I was thinking that, you know, we said like 50% of the internet is now bots, so that's probably only going to increase at the rate it's going. You know, so I think people are in limbo at the moment about how much they still like integrate that human type, you know, text into it, you know, like you say, like the storytelling and the fluffy language and the stuff that humans sometimes like. I know we're getting away from that even as humans because we haven't got time, but you know, where do you draw the line?
I'm Matt, co-founder of SEO Gets, the easiest way to analyze and report on your Search Console and GA4 data. We've crafted SEO Gets around 4 areas of every campaign: prioritization, strategy, tracking, and reporting. Most tools treat every page the same, but the best SEOs focus on the pages that actually matter. Our one-click setup tracks your content groups, lets you prioritize them, and keeps what matters most front and center. Now that you're focused, you need a strategy. Content decay, cannibalization issues, striking distance keywords, you name it. Every answer is now one click away. And speaking of being busy, you can't always be watching your site. Our index reporting catches important pages falling out of Google's index, and our Chrome extensions lets you create annotations from anywhere, so you can measure the impact of every change. And finally, reporting. The worst part of the job, but possibly the most important. Create live client portals for stakeholders, easily export any chart as a PNG, or use the annotations tab to show the impact of your work over time. Prefer to use SEO Gets as a context and enrichment layer for your own AI setup? Connect our MCP in seconds, annotations, indexing health, and prioritized content groups, all helpful for your MCP stack. And did I mention unlimited websites and users on every plan? So get started today with our 14-day free trial, no credit card needed. Connect your Search Console and you're up and running in seconds.
Are you going to write just for bots in future, or,
Yes and no. That's why I said you have two types of websites. You have the website that is an experience that is so fun that you're going to keep on going there because there's something to it. And then you have the website where like, listen, I just need you to be a repository of information. I just want to get in, get out, get the info, or have a bot do it for me. And these are not mutually exclusive. However, I'm not going to be pretending that it's easy to do both at the same time. So I have a very good example because I have been going down the rabbit hole of collection/category pages. Bear with me. So what's the last thing you bought online that you were happy about?
Jeez.
See, already that's what I mean. We can't even recall like a happy moment where we bought something on the internet.
That's coffee, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So I find this amazing because I know nothing about coffee. Believe it or not, all this energy is just generated here. I don't do coffee at all. So imagine you bought coffee. What's your favorite kind of coffee, Sean?
Any sort of caramel latte, I guess, is my go-to.
Fantastic. So caramel latte. So are there different types of caramel lattes that you could have, different brands, different things?
Yeah, loads of brands, types, everything.
Okay.
Extra shots, all that stuff.
I see. I just know how to spell espresso correctly, but that's it. That's where I stop. So imagine that you have a category page for caramel lattes. Your category page, your collection page, what is it going to be? It's going to be a really sad grid where you're going to scroll. You're going to have a few filters to live your life, right? But if I wanted to optimize it for LLMs, the concept of that page for Google was, hey, we want to show you, we know you're not sure about what you want, but we're showing you all of the options. Okay? But if we transpose this to LLMs, what is the job of that page? That page is meant to give you context to all the products. So instead of just dropping all of these products and letting you figure out your life with filters, how about we rethink the grid? How about we start with an anchorable statement that will explain, if you're a dad of 2 and you love coffee with, a little bit of a kick or sweetness, here's the caramel latte options that you have. So already I'm anchoring it in your context. And we don't have to go directly to dad of 2. We can describe why this drink makes you feel good. Okay. And then the first row can have a little tile that tells you, if you want that coffee on the go at the office, this is the packaging you want. And then the second row could absolutely be, hey, these are the best bets if you want good quality for a good price. And then the third row can be something else. So this is what I've been recommending to my clients. Those pages, they have to answer some people will call that the query found out, others will just call that intent. The idea is, if you want a personalized experience, I'm not providing you a personalized experience on my collection page. I am providing all the building blocks that will help an LLM contextualize this and provide you the personalized answer. But if you're a customer coming on that page, I'm pretty gosh darn sure you're going to enjoy that experience a lot more than just having to filter through it and you making me do the job. You see what I mean? How that LLM content that is like one sentence that is highly anchorable, like the machine can just come and lift it. It also helps humans. Imagine that you're shopping for an engagement ring. That's stressful. You have no clue what the good quality is. You don't even know if your partner wants gold or platinum or whatever. This is going to guide you and tell you, hey, this is a solid, these are the solid pieces that are timeless, iconic, maintain their value, because we never know with this economy. We never know with couples that keep breaking up too. Okay. And then there's other ones like for the unconventional bride, if you want these models. I see your reaction. I think it's clicking for you, right? Like you see what I mean with copywriting.
Yeah, 100%. I think where people are a bit like in limbo at the moment is that, how far down the line do they go with adapting it and personalization, and it used to be a thing of looking at user journeys and stuff, and people used to struggle in the traditional ways even before AI got involved. Like, I think that is where people are struggling. Like, how do they adapt for this new world in terms of like this personalization stuff and the user journey? But I mean, the way you're writing it, it would be a lot more appealing. I get that, and I agree as well. I think like it ties back to what we were saying before, when me and you used to log into the internet to go and use it because we had an intent to use it. Like you say, people are gonna go to websites because they want to go and have that experience in future, not because they have to do it. So that's interesting.
On top of that, I would argue something else. We've been dealing with a problem that customers have always been fed up with. What is that problem? You used to be able to go into a store and talk to a salesperson that had been selling mattresses for decades, that had been selling audio equipment for decades. All that knowledge that they brought helped sell things. They gave you good advice, and they gave you good advice because they knew that you were a patron and that you could come back. You don't mess with your customers. But then, capitalism is as capitalism does. The salespeople became less knowledgeable. You would want to buy a computer, you would ask a question, and you would realize the guy talking to you, you're like, may as well go on the internet and do my own research because you know nothing. Why are you here? So then showrooming started to happen because people would go and check the products to see if they liked it and buy it cheaper online and make sure that it has all the specs they want. So we're getting mad that people are continuing their showrooming behaviors by using LLMs this time around instead of your website. But your website was the reason physical stores struggled. So now you're mad it's happening to you? I'm not. I'm not surprised. And this is what I mean by creating something that contextualizes stuff properly. Because if you know your customers, if you actually care about them, if you're embedded in the social fabric, the community that you operate in, you know that stuff. You have to know it, because if you don't, you simply don't sell because they don't trust you. And we have this crisis of trust because that's what it comes down to, that all the data we were talking about. People don't trust brands anymore because they know what happens. They've been shown over and over again. There's a reason why Buy It for Life is a really popular community. So now that I said all this, I think that marketers are not understanding that the God mode we had was not the true God mode, but it's also the best we're ever going to have. Because if you go further than that, it's surveillance capitalism. It is fascism. And we see how that plays out in countries like China. Okay, people self-censor themselves. They're not necessarily being their authentic selves because they have to fit into expectations, because there's concrete dire consequences tied to the data that you leave behind. You are evaluated on this. So for us, if we know that all of this data is passing, we can either accept it and try to make the best of it, which a lot of Chinese netizens do. You'd be surprised how adaptable humans are. Or we're simply going to opt out in some cases. And if we're okay with agents, an agent doesn't care about a smiling baby on your site. An agent doesn't care about all the little CRO tricks that you have to sell more. The agent just needs pure information, very minimalistic interactions, and go. So, as a marketer, all you're doing is abdicating your ability to have all these touch points with customers and convince them. You're just delivering the information. Is that really marketing, or is that just technical marketing up until the machines know how to do it themselves? Kind of like, the dreaded schema when Google started learning from the schema. And on the other end, if you're a marketer that actually cares about people, are you going to be into heavy duty personalization to the point that, it's creepy to the person entering your website. I don't think that's the way to go. I think the way to go is to know your customers and write copy that will resonate with the people you want to sell to, not because you know everything about them, but because you're a human being that looked at trending behavior, and you know that as soon as you have a kid, you do that weird thing when you start talking about your kid in months instead of years, and other humans don't get it. You see what I mean? Like, that's a really shared human experience. You can personalize for it, but you're not personalizing for the person. You're personalizing for that big moment that you know how it goes. You've been there. And if I were to go a bit further on this, I think it's important to understand when you should feed bots and when you should not. Because who pays for all that traffic? Who pays for all that bot traffic? Seriously, who pays for that infrastructure? We never wonder about this. So, what do we do and how do we pay for it is a very big question. Right now, we're paying for it with our customer data going to these companies that make money off of us. But if people start rebelling and having their alternate vision of the internet, if you know, you know, I trust you, you trust me, we build this, then what does marketing start looking like for folks like us who used to be performance marketers? We're all running to branding, but we don't really know what branding is, do we? We've seen the effects of branding. We've seen the outcomes of good branding. We've leveraged it and then said, oh, we bring performance. You do your thing. So we're in the middle, aren't we? And we're trying to personalize as if this was the way out. I'm not sure it is. I think that copywriting needs to go in a way where you go, okay, if I have to talk to a bot and explain things, I want to make sure that this overlaps with what a human would need if they come on my website, which is a really hard act to pull off. But you also need to understand that sometimes, hey, that bot visiting this website 500 million times, that's costing the company so much money and not bringing us value. We're going to block it. So I'm giving a teaser, but I got access to a Kinsta study regarding bot traffic, the quality of it, where agents are getting stuck. And I think some brands are not going to be happy about agentic AI because it's going to cost them a lot of money and they're not going to see the returns.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my own study on bot traffic to our side at the moment because we have got a few tools, and yeah, it's fascinating, that side of it. Definitely want to get more into that. Yeah, before we kind of wrap it up, I do want to get into a few more things. And I've got to say, like, yeah, you've echoed a lot of my concerns about surveillance and security issues, because I think, like, you know, AI should be, you know, if we're going to use it, it should be for the better of humankind. And
Yes.
you know, but as usual, technology is being used to weaponize it and use it in war and use it, you know, the forces that look over us kind of monitoring us even closer, taking advantage of it. You know, I know in this country we have who look after like financial stuff, and they're using it just to dig through the archives of like years and years to get money off people, you know, people that haven't really got much money at the moment. There's not much money in the, you know, anywhere really, but it's definitely in the UK, and they're just using that to fund themselves, not for anyone's benefit. I just think, yeah, that's kind of my issues with the whole thing. And I do think, like, what's the end game? Because we know a lot of people are using AI systems. We know that is like becoming popular, but we also know that the electricity bills of people around data centers are growing and growing, and that you know, energy isn't like an endless source, and we know that we're somehow going to have to generate enough if everyone starts using it. And also we know like the other environmental issues that it brings. And we also know, like what I was talking about, AI psychosis, and it's doing all sorts of things to human behaviors, you know, becoming even more enclosed in their own world rather than, you know, opening up, which obviously things like social media was built for, but then did the opposite. So I kind of feel like if I had to put money on it at the moment, I would probably say it actually ends up not being as big as what it probably I thought it would be, like maybe a year ago, because I could see kind of cracks appearing already. And I think that's human behavior generally, and I think the infrastructure just isn't there.
No. And this is, I know that for some folks listening, if you're a bit more senior, you're listening to this going, I'm so happy that somebody is putting the words that onto things that I've been sensing. But I have to bring it back to something really tangible. So when I said who pays for this, hang on tight because I have some data for you. So what I didn't know is that Ahrefs bot made 390,000 requests to a single site's add to cart URLs in 24 hours. I don't know about you, but that made me go, huh? Like, we're talking about all these bots, right? And we're going, okay, so we're having an issue because this bot is coming up. Ahrefs? Yeah, there's a very good reason for that. I let you figure it out if you're listening. Go look into it. Amazing rabbit hole. But that's nothing compared to Claudebot that generated 3.75 million requests to an add to cart URL on a single site. Okay, multiple add to cart URLs in 24 hours. And this, if you're a technical SEO or if you're interested, let me break it down for you. This is really bad. This is really bad because it's not just any old page. When a bot does this to your website, what happens is that they go visit specific pages that require your server to do the work. They're not static. So this means add to cart, wish list, filtering product pages, Ajax powered interactions, calendar views with those pesky query strings. So we end up, with like a lot of parameters that the server cannot just go, oh, I have this cached, let me serve it to you. The server has to do work, and that work costs a lot of money. And that money is not being compensated by more purchases. It's not like a human actually adding to the cart and buying, right? It's a bot getting stuck and making demands of your infrastructure. So I know that a lot of people are talking about you need to improve your personas for prompt tracking. And don't get me wrong, I'm on there. I'm doing the work for my clients. But I'm already thinking, and I'm sure you're going to come to the same conclusion. We need bot personas. I need to know, hey, which bots are coming onto resource heavy sections, and do I want to get them in? Are they bringing me value, or are they just coming to ingest the knowledge and bring me nothing else? Because if that's the case, I'm not paying the bill. And customers are saying the same thing, because now Target is saying, if you buy with our agent and it makes a mistake, you pay for it. And it's like, hey, wait. It's your store, it's your agent, and I pay for it? No, you take responsibility for this. You are the brand. I'm supposed to have a relationship with you. We have a contract as a customer. So, when you say people are starting to notice, it's because it is gosh darn broken. And that's why I say either they're going to pull it off at the last minute with a deus ex machina, something saving them, or it's going to crash, because Shawnee goes further. If I tell an agent to go buy me stuff, it is going to check my memory, and it may leak my social security number to the website that's not secure. So we're having leaky buckets. And when I say leaky buckets, I know that you and I discussed, I do a few forays into cybersecurity, because if you work in technical SEO, you can't help it. You see all that stuff duct taped together. And I know that I spoke about prompt injection that is still working, where you could inject something in an image, and as long as it doesn't disrupt the LLM's primary purpose of answering, it can flavor the answering. It can not necessarily hijack it, but heavily influence it. And this is a problem because that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's an even simpler method of screwing with this to bypass safeguards that these companies say they have. It's called the best of N jailbreaking. And this is basically the equivalent of a brute force attack. And if you don't know what a brute force attack is and you're listening to this, that's totally fine. Imagine a kid asking you, Mom, can I have candy? Can I have candy now? What about now? Can I have candy? Hey, how about candy now? And if you literally, it's that, Sean. If you ask the same thing 50 slightly different ways, you are cracking the thing. So your original prompt can be like, how do I do this? And you can use a 0 for the how, or go full caps, or put dots, or put hashtags, and you will wear down the model. And this is easy. It is cheap. How are you telling me I should be trusting you when this happens? So now I see, for example, in Claude, there's little messages going, hey, before you connect to Canva, you should know that like prompt injection is a problem, but it's your responsibility. So before you click, know this. And it's like, stop trying to pass the buck on to us. Fix your stuff and maybe we'll use it. But if it's going to be that nightmarish and you're offering us nothing in return, this is really, really bad. Because imagine Target made me pay. I decide now it's my turn to make Target pay. Let me ask, hey, Target, how about that candy? And then I break the thing and I get access to a lot of stuff. So you see what I mean? Like there's a lot of demands being put onto website owners. There's a lot of demands being put on customers because they think they can get away with it. And that's not how economics work at all. So let's see how it plays out, because to me, it's going to be the Wild West. I'll end with one thing. Remember how we said humans adapt? Not only am I Facebook old, 56K modem old, MySpace old, I'm Google bomb levels of old. Google bombing used to be a thing where humans got together and decided we are going to mess with the algorithm. And it was to a point where you could say stuff like, who is more evil than Satan himself? And you would have a picture of Bill Gates and Microsoft showing up in the results. You could also have, and this one, as a French person, I'm very angry about. You could ask about French military victories, and it would autocorrect underneath, and it would say, "Did you mean to say defeats?" And it's like, do you know how big of an imperial empire France was, and how many, like, as a love-hate relationship neighbor, you know how dangerous the French are and should not be. Do not let us deceive you into this. Google did wrong with this. So what happens now? I saw some stuff and I want to talk about it online. I will be sharing it soon. People are poisoning the AI. They are doing data poisoning on Reddit. So there was some news that OpenAI has a real problem with, I think it was goblins. They can't stop talking about goblins. So in the comments, people are like, oh, they're using Reddit to feed that stuff. I love Sam Altman's Goblin restaurant. It's right next to the other one that closed down. And then another comment went, oh, I know the one you're talking about with all the goblins. And they just kept talking about these goblins as if they were real with natural language. And they were backing each other up and liking the comments. So there's social signals that this is real. And at this point in time, they made it real. They are poisoning these models long term with their trolling. And it's free, it's fun, it's a social bonding activity, and it's la résistance.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of my talk on Brighton SEO was about misinformation in AI, and it doesn't learn from the truth. It doesn't know what the truth is. It's learning from patterns and consistency across the web, so you can manipulate it any way you want. And it's like you say, it's always been happening to some degree, but now it's maybe even easier to do it than it was before. But arguably,
it's breaking us as well, because, and this is something I tell my students all the time, what is the difference between a lie and bullshit, Sean? A good lie has to survive intersecting the truth. It is indexed. It is anchored on the truth. Bullshit doesn't care if it's real. Bullshit doesn't care if it's false. Notice how is the ultimate bullshit machine. I mean, he's giving ChatGPT a run for their money because, once again, there's no consequences to bullshit. You can produce it really fast. So either governments step in or humans are going to embrace this, be very absurd, like Soviet Russia, where it was basically like, we know that they lie. They know that we know that they lie, but we're going to keep the lie going. It is one of those jokes. And it can keep going until it breaks. And when it breaks, it's like the Berlin Wall. What I predict we're going to see is either they stabilize this and solve all of these problems, or it's going to be the Berlin Wall. It's going to be fine. And then you cannot stop people going to the wall. And you cannot stop them going through and going away. So with this in mind, we could very well have an exodus of a part of the population going, this brings me no value. This is not fun. I don't care. This could very well be, gasp, a very fancy NFT.
And just to finish off, I guess, last thing, I don't want to hold you for too long. What should people be focusing on? I know we touched on a few things today, but what should people, if you take away one thing, what should we really be working on at the moment, do you think, or looking at?
I almost said it. It depends. It depends on what, very quickly. So if you're into technical marketing, you should be going into technical branding, because that's something that branding people can't do. They cannot monitor hallucinations. They can't figure out, hey, is this a security threat happening? They cannot identify easily if there's brand drift and tell you, hey, here's how we can fix it. I have this thing going right now where I have multiple clients where one tip, all I have to do is check the sources from their own website and put in prod. That's it, Sean. I filter by the word prod with the domain name. Do you know how many staging websites are feeding AI right now? It's bonkers. Technical branding, done. It's stuff that you already know that nobody else does. You're just transposing your skills. If you're a very good copywriter, like, for example, Alice, love her, Chima, fantastic. They know people. They know how to write to get through the gatekeeper, the bots, but they know people and how they work, and they connect with people, and not in a fly-by-night way, in a very tangible long-term investment type of way, a good brand way, a good neighbor way. And if you're neither of those, well, you know where your strength lies. If you are the type of person that understands search bars and understands search behavior, you can transpose this to social search to feed it. I see all the people trying to go on Reddit. My God, they have not lived through Reddit. Reddit eats marketers for lunch. So you cannot take a silver bullet and fix it. You can't take a shortcut. You actually have to get good at the stuff. And what is the stuff? Well, it's either technical, and it's very technical, and you go with bots and you fix those issues, or you go with humans, but you offer something that no LLM could produce, no junior could produce, and no person with a stroke of luck could produce, because you've put in the work, you've put in the hours, and you know good freaking marketing.
Nice. Yeah, well, I think that's great to wrap it up on. You are like one of my favorite people on this planet, I must admit. I could talk to you all day, every day, but we'll wrap it up because, well, I want to eat some dinner, and I'm sure you got things to do. So
I'm gonna say one thing though. You see how we've gone through explaining the history of marketing. We've gone through explaining the history of the internet. We've gone through explaining the history of humans. This is multiple cycles. There is something very deep about understanding and having that history of your industry as knowledge. And I know that when you're young, you come in and you're hoping that you can quickly level up. I remember being impatient listening to seniors going, screw all of this, give me the stuff I need to do to get better and get more money. And then as you mature, you realize all of this is interconnected. So please take the time to read up on the history of the internet, history, period, of humans. And you will see that it's just cycles coming in. So if you're stressed about what's coming up, A, you should be, but B, use that stress to get prepared and look behind you to understand what's in front of you.
Yeah, it's a great lesson, and I echo it. So yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, as usual, thanks so much for your time, and we have to get you back on. That'd be awesome.